Women Innovators. Interviews with women with big messages and big missions, sharing their stories to inspire you to live your passion and step up to make the world a better place. Here's your host, Tammy Patzer.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Nanette Saylor. Nanette is a creativity coach and champion, known as a possibility partner for visionary women seeking serenity who are consciously creating their lives and transforming the lives of those they serve. She is the creator of the 12 Baby Steps Foundation Formula, the author of The Art of Journaling to Grow Your Business, and the host of the Paradise Within Retreat. Clearing a path she calls the Wise Well Woman's Way, Nanette leads women on a revolutionary journey to create joy-filled lives while they uncover the beauty of who they are and redefine success on their terms. Welcome, Nanette.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, I'm really excited to learn more about you and who you help. Can you tell me a little bit more about your programs?
Yeah, so I work in a variety of ways, and I serve a number of different kinds of people. Primarily, I choose to work with women in either one-on-one or in small groups. And so one-on-one, that looks like direct coaching. And typically the women I'm working with are creatives, they're authors, musicians, artists, and they're also often entrepreneurs, people who are creating lives by their own design. And I also like to work in small groups in workshops. So I do a lot of that as well. And those workshops take me into corporate entities sometimes too. So my real passion is to serve women who are in a place where they've begun to design their life. Again, that's kind of where the entrepreneurial passion comes in. And then they've discovered that it's not exactly what they thought they wanted it to be, and they're looking for something more. So always there's the question of, is this all there is? What else might I create? What else is possible for me? And those are the places that my programs help us find the answers to.
And I imagine there's a lot of women like me who are at the, well, what's next phase, or what is my legacy? How will I be remembered? Because when you start to realize that, okay, let's say that if you were married or if you were a mother, and pretty soon maybe you're not so responsible for your children anymore. You have more free time than you ever dreamed of. And it seems like women especially seem to start looking for something to become more fulfilled. So what would you say are some of the problems that you see with your clients? What are some of the issues that they're contemplating?
That's a great question. Often the questions are around wanting to have more freedom to do things that they've put on the back burner for some reason. So, and as you just described, it can also be about what is it that I'm going to leave? What is the mark I want to leave on the world? So they often are in a space where they've had a fair amount of success. They have a lot that they've created, so there's a lot of stuff going on in their lives. And where we start for many people is in, okay, let's evaluate which of these things really matter. Which ones are the ones that are just holdovers from a previous life? I see a lot of that, where people have made a transition and they're still holding on to pieces that they could have let go and would have created more space for new things. So it's a lot about that balancing of how do we really look at all of the components of of someone's life and business, and then say what fits, what doesn't, what can I release, and then in that process, opening up space for new things. And then we start to explore what the new things might look like. And that's the really fun piece, because we get to start talking about what makes you smile, what do you love to do for fun, all of that.
Do you find that many women, that they don't really trust themselves or their gut instincts?
Yeah, I think that certainly is a learned practice. And we often have come of age with other people's rules and other people's systems. So we've used those in place of our own intuition, our own, what I like to call, inner wisdom. And because certainly my core audience is midlife, so we've made some mistakes too along the way. And we've started often not to trust because of those mistakes. And then we look outside of ourselves for answers. And what I encourage my clients to do, and we do this in groups and we do this one-on-one, is to spend some time in the introspective place that starts to, for lack of a better description, flex the muscle of hearing your own voice and learning to appreciate what it's saying. And then with time, you begin to trust that noise, if you will. A lot of people describe it as there's so much noise in my head. Well, outside of the noise, there is an inner wisdom voice too, and that inner wisdom voice always has wonderful, magical, delightful, kind, compassionate things to say. And we just have to get practiced at listening for that voice.
That's interesting that you said that the inner wisdom voice is kind and compassionate. So I take it that the chatter or the ego voice is the one that's telling you about all your failures and the things that haven't gone right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the telltale sign. The inner wisdom never speaks to you in foul language, never, your inner wisdom is quiet, and that's often why we don't hear it. The other voice, the one that's really just the noise, the ego as you described it, it's the one that's saying nasty things to us and telling us that we're losers. And we don't need to hear that all the time.
I think that's really interesting, especially the part about the old stories or the old scripts. And here's a really short example from my personal experience. I always wanted to go to school, and I thought I wanted to get a PhD. And I'm almost 60 years old in another couple of years. So let's just say I was 57 when I decided this. And so I actually found a program and got a full ride scholarship, to pay for it and everything. And I went, but I quickly discovered once I went that, number one, to do what I want to do, I don't need a PhD. And by the time I was done, I would be in my, 60s. And did I really want to be a college professor? And
right.
The answer was no. What I was really doing was I was going backwards to a dream that had been mine when I was a teenager, because it's like an unfulfilled thing. And when I got my head on straight or listened to that inner voice, I came back, and that's how the Women Innovators radio show was born, was because I thought that I did not need a PhD to fulfill the mission of helping other women share their stories and speak. So I really understand what you're saying about trusting your own inner wisdom and that tuition. So how do you facilitate that or help women with that?
One of the tools that I use, and I encourage everyone that I work with to use, is a journal. It's simple. It's easy once you get out of your own way. And with regular practice, that's where the voice of your inner wisdom will show up. And it never fails. Every single person I know who has a journaling practice, if you ask them that question, they would respond exactly the same way. Your inner wisdom shows up on the page. Of course, there are days where it's me just griping too, but once I get that out of the way, then something else will come through. And I love that you shared your story because it is a perfect example. You had a dream from a long time ago that was attached to a value that you were able to see you could fulfill that intention, that mission, in a different way that was more relevant to you today. And that's really what we're hoping, is that we'll make that connection, and then in that opportunity to look at things differently, we'll begin to see what the other options look like and explore those. So journaling is for me, really the most important tool I have.
Well, I like the title of the book that you wrote, The Art of Journaling to Grow Your Business, because so many of us are looking at becoming entrepreneurs and growing a business. And of course, we all want it to be a sustainable business. Can you tell me a little bit more about the 12 Baby Steps Foundation Formula?
Yeah, the 12 Baby Steps was born during my transition from my self-described stress junkie persona to living in a new way and showing up in my life as somebody who wasn't such a crazy maker. And I discovered that I needed some simple tools and some regular practice and ritual in my life that would support me to see things differently and to be different. And it's not something that you just wake up one day and all of a sudden you're living in a whole new way. You need to do this a little bit at a time. And I knew that as I was doing that, and my transition was from hotel manager to coach, hotel manager to entrepreneur, and I knew while I was doing that there were lots of other women out there doing it too. And so the practice that I developed for myself became this formula, the 12 Baby Steps. And it starts with first simply committing to be different, committing to change. And that's hard for a lot of us when we've set our lives up in a very specific way with very specific rules. Now all of a sudden we're saying we're going to be open to flow. We're going to be open to the possibility that we can change. We're going to be open to what it takes to make that happen. And so that's the first step. And then the second step is simply breathe. Because I learned that if I couldn't do anything else, there was no 45-minute meditation happening in my world at that time. There was not time to go to yoga classes 3 days a week. There wasn't any of that. But I could stop for a minute and I could take 3 deep breaths and I could become more conscious of that nourishing breath supporting me to dial my tension down and to be more calm in the way that I was in my day. And over time, it got with practice that my normal breathing changed. It's interesting when you start to give attention to something that simple, I realized how short my breath was, that I was breathing in the very top part of my chest, that I was always in this stressed state. And it was showing up in the way that I was breathing. So if I could change that, then I could change the more dramatic things like quit my job and start a business. So.
Wow. And that's with breathing. That is phenomenal.
Yeah, and so the Baby Steps program really is about these really simple baby steps and starting, because again, I was living, I was on 5 boards. I'd created this insane thing that was my life, and I had all kinds of activity, and unraveling all of that took some time. And so I couldn't just say, okay, I'm going to do these big things that are going to take a complete 360 in my life. I had to do it a little bit at a time, and each time I created a little more space and a little more relaxation and a little more space and a little more relaxation. And each time, then I was able to get more comfortable with letting more things go. And then I could start to add in new things like a morning journaling practice, which really only takes about 15 to 30 minutes in the morning.
I think what you're saying is really important, because I catch myself avoiding journaling, and I know it's because I am not sure I'm ready to find out what I might find out, but also the time factors. It seems like if you talk to people, their major excuses for why they don't eat better, lose weight, exercise, or do whatever it could be that could be something that would make them probably healthier and happier, it is based on time. And they also seem to think that the time they spend on themselves isn't as valuable as the time they spend doing something else, maybe for other people. How do you work with people when they're kind of at that place of a little bit of resistance? Because even though I'm it's like, yeah, I want to exercise. Yeah, I want to eat right. Yeah, I want to be healthy. It's like, oh my goodness, I don't have time.
Right. Yeah. And depending on the type of person that it is. So in my coaching, what I have come to appreciate is that every person is unique. And that's, creativity coaching, what's so special about it is for me, is this idea that we start with the core of everyone is a unique individual, and we all have beautiful strengths that often are buried. So when I work with people, I start from that place. And so I start by investigating what it is that you're describing as no time, right? And we take a look at, how are you spending your time? For some people, it looks like literally them tracking their time. If there are people who are willing and able to do that, tracking their time all through a week or two to see what's actually happening. For others, it's a little more casual, a little more loose, where we simply talk about what are the tasks, what are the things that you do during the course of the day. And then I'll start to open up with questions. So coaching is always about questions. What is your go-to thing when you're stressed? What is it that you want to beat yourself up for the most about wasting time with? Talk to me about how you waste time. And then things will start to show up, like I play Words with Friends or whatever that game is on Facebook. I don't play. But, and you discover now in that conversation that somebody is actually spending hours and hours doing those kinds of things. Or binge watching television, or chatting with mom, or, and the list can be endless of the ways that we use our time where there's opportunity to take it back. And that's all part of this bigger question about how important is it for you to make this change? What will happen if you don't make this change? How will you feel if a year from now we have this conversation and you're still saying, I really, really want to start exercising because I've been carrying this 25 extra pounds around for 3 years? And in that dialogue, we start to get to willingness. In order to make change, you have to start with desire, and you have to be willing. And so we start to really uncover, why is it that you're saying one thing and doing another? And maybe what you're saying isn't really that important to you. It's just programmed messaging, or maybe it is important to you and you're afraid of what you're going to have to give up to shift. And then that's another conversation we have. And it just keeps going like that. But always, always I start small, because there's nothing more defeating than creating goals that are too big and unrealistic for your style and your behavior. And so I really look at that and help guide the way that success is established, because we need success in the beginning too, or else we're not going to stick with it. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it's very helpful, because it was kind of funny. When you said no time, I actually heard it as no time. Instead of yes time, no time. And it's funny because I heard that and I was going, you're absolutely right, because when we say we don't have time, we're actually saying no to ourselves. And it really just struck me when you said that, because it was no time. And of course it has that double meaning. I have no time, but it's really no time. I'm saying no to myself.
Yes.
So that's really fascinating to me, because I think I just had an aha moment.
Yes.
When you said that, because
I love that.
It just makes a lot of sense. So if somebody wants to work with you, how can they find you, and how would you suggest they get started with that contact?
So I love to chat with people via phone to make that connection. What I typically do is create what I call a virtual coffee, and you can find the invitation for that on my website, wisewellwomen.com, WISEWELLWOMEN.com, and you'll look for a link to schedule a virtual coffee. And that's really the best way to get started. That way we get to know each other. And then from there, I always offer what I call a discovery and clarity call. And that's an opportunity. It's free. There's no cost and there's no obligation. That's an opportunity for us to explore what coaching looks like and what your intentions are for what it is that you want support around. And then in that call, we figure out if starting with an audio e-course is where you're at, or whether private one-on-one coaching works, or maybe there's a group workshop coming up that a person might want to be a part of. There are a variety of ways that I can work with anyone who's interested, and there are all the ranges in terms of the investment too. So even people who are like I was at that place of my life as a chaotic mess, and I really need some help, I have tools available that are free that people can access to. So.
Wow. Well, thanks so much, Nanette. So wisewellwomen.com. It's as simple as setting up a virtual coffee with Nanette to find out more. And you can also find Nanette all over online, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, either under Nanette Saylor or Wise Well Woman or Women, depending on the site. But I think I would go to wisewellwomen.com, set up that virtual coffee. I mean, who doesn't want to have coffee with a friend?
Absolutely.
Wonderful to me. So thank you.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity for us to share what, support for each other. Some really fun stuff has come out of those conversations. So.
Well, I really had a really good time just chatting with you these few minutes, Nanette, because, like I said, I had an aha moment when you said that. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad. I am so glad. That's great.
everyone. Today's guest has been Nanette Saylor of WiseWellWomen.com. She supports visionary women seeking serenity who are consciously creating their lives and transforming the lives of those they serve, clearing a path she calls the Wise Well Woman's Way. Nanette leads women on a revolutionary journey to create joyful lives while they uncover the beauty of who they are and redefine success on their terms. This is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to Women Innovators with Tammy Patzer. To learn more, please go to womeninnovatorsradio.com. And please do subscribe and share to spread the big messages and big missions to change the world.